This is the in-depth drone review of the Bwine F7 drone. This review will show you everything you need to know before making a decision on whether or not to purchase this drone, as we rate the drone over 20 categories. Make sure to turn up the definition of your YouTube browser so you can unlock the full potential of the F7's footage quality. In the box, the F7 is advertised to shoot in 4K through an SD card and 1080p through the app. With my experience, the drone shoots in 2K. When using an SD card, the videos are clear, and through the app, the footage is acceptable. The F7 is very good for looking at your roof, and the camera tilts to stop glare from the sun. Stay tuned till the end of this video because I'll show you more of the F7's footage. Footage quality is 4 stars. The F7 has a 3-axis gimbal that helps it excel in this category. 3-axis gimbal helps the drone when it slides, tilts, and rises to keep the camera stable. The gimbal is also mounted in the drone with rubber to keep the camera stable during hard shakes. There is even a speed mode labeled camera where the drone flies slowly and helps create cinematic footage. If you're shooting with the F7 for videos and decide to stabilize the footage, it comes out even better. Footage stability is 5 stars. The photos are very crisp on the F7. One thing to note is that you cannot take photos while the video is rolling. It's not a problem, I just want to mention it. The photos on the F7 display a wide range of colors that you can see in photos like this of a sunset. I'll also put more photos at the end of the video for those who want to see more. Photos are 5 stars. There is an amazing carrying case included in the box. The case holds the F7, extra parts, batteries, and the controller with ease. There's high quality padding in the case and a soft outer shell. Note that the outer shell is not waterproof. The F7 is very sturdy as you fold it, same with the controller. The attention to detail is shown as everything fits perfectly in the case. Portability is 5 stars. The controller has many features that take it above the average controller on the market. It starts with the flip-out arms that make the controller easy to hold. Follow up with the high-definition screen that shows speed, distance from the takeoff point, height from the takeoff point, the drone speed mode, the velocity or the speed of the drone battery, photo, video, signal strength, GPS strength, and the remote control battery. The buttons on the controller go as follows. The scroll wheel on the top left zooms the camera in and out. You can see the camera zoom in and out through the FPV on the app, but it won't show up on the footage from the app or the SD card. The scroll wheel on the right tilts the camera up and down. When clicking on the top left button, the camera takes a photo, and when clicking on the top right button, the camera stops or starts a video. You can see if you are recording through the screen on the controller as mentioned before. On the front of the controller, you have the smooth and high-quality joysticks, followed by 4 buttons on the bottom. From the left, we start with the speed switch and GPS mode changer. The second button is the emergency stop, a great feature to have for beginners. The third button is the power button, and the last button on the controller is the return to home. Note that when you select the return to home button on the controller without connecting to the app, the F7 makes a beeline of the return to home point. All you gotta do is make sure there are no trees in the way of the drone's position. The controller is rechargeable and uses the same cables as the batteries. Note that there is no takeoff and landing button on the controller. The takeoff and landing buttons on the app. Lastly, the controller has an amazing phone holder that can hold the iPhone 13 with the case on. Controller is 5 stars. In the instructions manual, it tells you to not fly the drone in windy conditions higher than 16 miles per hour. I found that the F7 handles winds very well and adjusts to fight wind. The brushless motors are a big help when fighting wind, and you can always turn up the speed of the propellers to keep the drone under control. One thing I see with drones is once they get past 150 feet, wind gusts toss the drone around, and I was not having this problem with the F7. Wind resistance is 5 stars. The F7 comes with 2 batteries. They're both 2600 milliamps and take 6.5 hours to charge. In the box, you get 2 charging cords. One comes in the batteries box and the other comes in the separate parts box. The best part about the batteries is the lights. The lights flash when charging, so you know when to take them off the charger / how long they should be charging. Batteries, 5 stars. Make sure to check the instructions manual because there are a lot of precautions you need to take to protect the batteries. The advertised flight time for the F7 is 50 minutes, so 25 minutes per battery. I found the batteries lasted 15 minutes in very cold conditions, below freezing. Batteries do not do well in cold weather, so I was surprised by the drone's flight time. During the test, I was flying in normal mode, but if you fly in camera mode, where the propellers go slower, or in speed mode, where the propellers go faster, the flight time increases or decreases. If it was warm, I estimate the drone can fly for upwards of 20 minutes as advertised. One great feature included in the F7 is the low battery return to home. When the F7 falls below a certain battery level, the drone returns home automatically so you don't lose it. Flight time is 5 stars. There is a QR code on the side of the box and the instructions manual to the app, but if that doesn't work, you can find the app by looking up Bwine Drone. When you open up the app for the first time, you can watch a video that takes you through how to set up the drone, so you never have to touch an instructions manual. Connect to the Wi-Fi of the F7 and you're open up to a multitude of features through the app. Note, none of these features avoid obstacles, so I strongly advise flying in open spaces. I'm going to spend some time talking about each of these features starting now. The app is very easy to use and helps you connect to the drone. When you enter the app, it takes you step by step through how to calibrate, pair, and fly the drone. Starting in the bottom left is a guide button. Once you click on it, a menu opens up with 5 subheadings. The help manual helps you pair the app and troubleshoots for common errors. The Learn to Fly tab opens up a menu of helpful videos. The disclaimer and safety tab opens up a PDF that goes through, you guessed it, the disclaimer and safety warnings. The Quick Start Guide opens up the Quick Start Guide as a PDF, and the final tab opens up the instructions manual as a PDF. Back to the menu, and the second icon from the bottom is the Learn to Fly icon. Selecting this button opens an in-depth instructional YouTube video on the Bwine F7. The final button on the menu is the Controls button. After connecting to the F7's Wi-Fi, you can open up the Controls tab and watch the live FPV. The tab also unlocks all the other features in the app. I mentioned this earlier in the controller section because the controller does not have a takeoff and landing button. In the top left, there is the takeoff and landing button. Selecting this button opens up a menu that lets you take off and land the drone. Under the takeoff and landing button is the return to home button. Upon selection, the drone will rise to a preset height and land within 5 feet of the takeoff point. Here is the live FPV of the drone after selection of the return to home button. You can see it land itself very close to the original takeoff zone. The arrow on the left side opens up an entire menu that unlocks even more features through the app. The F7 can follow you in 2 ways. The first way is the image follow me. The drone tracks your image and follows your shape. This feature is very finicky because it depends on a lot of factors. The color of your shirt has to be very different from the backdrop. I thought wearing black was enough against a green backdrop, but it was not. The F7 can also follow you through GPS. The drone follows the GPS signal coming from your phone. This feature works absolutely incredible. It follows you with perfect distance and even rotates to keep you in frame. The orbit mode through the app is called Around Flight. When selecting the Around Flight button, it opens up a menu that asks you to set the diameter of the orbit. I love the orbit mode in the F7, and the 3-axis gimbal helps the camera stay stable throughout the orbit. Music. I'm assuming this feature lets you play music while you're flying the drone, but I never got it to work. The VR button splits the live FPV. This allows you to put on VR goggles and fly the drone that way. I've never been comfortable flying in VR, but this is definitely a feature you can take advantage of. When you select the lens angle icon, it opens up a bar that you can drag to tilt the camera up and down. It stays on the screen until you deselect it, so you can have it there for as long as you want. That is, if you decide not to use the scroll wheel on the controller. Gesture photo. I failed to get this feature to work. I tried standing closer, farther away, and anything in between, but the photo wouldn't capture. Gesture record. Again, another failed attempt at getting a feature to work. These problems are in no way deal breakers, I just want to mention them. Route rules is just a fancy name for waypoints. The waypoints work perfectly on the F7, just make sure you don't drop them too far away. Not due to lack of range, you just want to keep the drone in sight. This is the coolest feature I've seen on the channel. There are 3 different filters that the drone can shoot in besides the regular/no filter. The first filter is cartoon. This makes everything look like it was straight out of an old pixelated cartoon. You can see the effect in the real-time FPV. The second effect is sketch. This filter is awesome because everything looks like it's sketched. And the final effect is black and white. One thing to note is these lens effects do not show up in the SD card. They do save in the app, but I was definitely sad when the footage didn't have the filter in the SD card. You can zoom through the app as you can on the controller. The zoom will also not show up in the footage through the SD card or the app, but if you see something interesting, you have the option to zoom in. In the top right corner, you can see the status of the drone battery, the controller battery, and the satellite connection. Just under this, you can also see if an SD card is connected, so you know if your SD card is recording. In the bottom left, you can also see a lot of data on its position and speed. All of the data on position is based off the return to home point / where you took off. You can start and stop photos and videos through the app by switching between the photo and video mode, and then by selecting the large button. Below the photo and video button, you have the gallery. When opening up the gallery, you can see the past photos and videos you've taken. You can share, save, and delete this footage from the gallery. Mic. When selecting this, anything you say will be attached to the footage that you filmed at the time of taking that footage. Don't worry, we're almost there. When you hit the 3 dots in the top right, you are opened up to the final 3 categories. Parameter. The F7 starts in beginner mode, where the flight distance and height is very limited. This is good for beginners, but you can disable this by deselecting beginner mode. Then you can adjust how far and how high you want the drone to max out at. You can also set the return to home altitude here. Under the track tab, you can see all the flight records. You can also see max mileage, altitude, and speed. Very cool. There is also the Find Drone tab. This feature is great. The drone doesn't have to be on or have a battery in it for you to be able to see the latitude and longitude of the F7's current position. This is an amazingly helpful feature if the F7 is lost. You can change the unit from miles per hour to meters per second and vice versa to fit the unit you like to use. This is incredibly helpful and an absolutely genius feature to include in an app. You can also select or deselect, show the route, display prompt message, and voice prompt. I highly recommend flying with the app at all times. The features it opens are incredible, but it also makes it a lot easier to fly the F7. App is 5 stars. Most of the GPS features were just covered in the app category, and because of the extensive amount of GPS features, it's a 5 star. The F7 is one of those drones that can go as high as you want to take it. That being said, once you pass 250 feet, wind gusts come into play. The F7 fights these gusts well, it's just hard to see the drone getting moved around. Again, how high you take it is up to the flyer, making height 5 stars. The advertised range for the FPV is 1.8 miles. I found that I was comfortable taking the drone a half mile away. You're not supposed to let the drone out of your sight, so a half mile is a comfortable distance to let the drone fly. That being said, the drone can definitely go farther, leading range to be 5 stars. Altitude hold. The F7 has altitude hold sensors on the bottom of the drone, and these, paired with the GPS, make the altitude hold amazing. In this video, you can see how the F7 starts at this height, and after sliding around, ends up at the same height. Altitude holds 5 stars. For beginners, I would recommend flying in camera mode so the drone flies a little slower and it's easier to control. You want to fly in this mode with low wind. You can also see how far away the drone is through the app, and that helps you gauge where the drone is / how long it's going to take to get back to you. Easy to control is 5 stars. Customer service. Bwine's customer service team is above par. They respond in emails with haste and are happy to help. As we talked about in the altitude category and the wind resistance category, the F7 is very good at staying in the same position. Stability is 5 stars. The F7 does have an SD card slot in the back of the camera. I highly recommend using an SD card because it allows the drone to shoot in higher quality. For example, the F7 shoots in 4K when using an SD card, shoots in 1080p through the app. I use the SanDisk 32GB micro SD card, and I'll link that in the description. Any micro SD card works as long as it's 32GB or less. The F7 cannot do any flips. This is a feature that's not a deal breaker, just part of the review. I would recommend all beginners take their first flight in very open spaces with no wind. If you're truly a beginner to flying a drone, I recommend reading the instructions manual so you know everything from how to emergency stop the drone to make it return to home if needed. I think any beginner could get a grasp of how to fly a drone with this, leading easy for beginners to be 5 stars. There is a gimbal cover and a propeller guard included in the box. The padding inside the case also protects the drone and controller from drops. I lightly crashed the drone a few times. One was due to the return to home malfunction I talked about with the controller, and the other was due to there being no landing button on the controller. You can see the light damage the drone took, but after wiping the drone off, there was no damage taken by the propellers or the camera. The F7 also has long landing gears and a sturdy build that keeps it flying after a crash. Note that when the F7 flips during a crash, the propellers stop rotating so that the propellers don't take extra damage in the dirt or the mud. Beginners, beware of overestimating your skills. Durability is 3 stars. In the box, you get an extra battery, screws, and extra propellers. These are great extra parts to have, and they even fit snugly in the carrying case so you can take them wherever you fly. The maintenance on the F7 is very easy. The instructions are easy to follow, so fixing a propeller is no problem. The only part that's missing is extra landing gears, and for that, extra parts and maintenance is 4 stars. Before we go into the value for money, I want to mention and thank Bwine for sending me the F7. That just means I have less experience in the rating of this category because I didn't see the bill hit my bank account. That being said, I would rate the value for money 4 stars. You get an amazing package with this drone, from the in-depth instructions manual to the 3-axis gimbal. With all the features previously mentioned, I rate this drone 4 stars because there are a ton of great drones out there, and it's necessary for you to think about all the options when making an investment of this size. The drone is listed on Amazon for $450, and if the price fluctuates, don't pay more than $500 for it. Check out other reviews on the channel on Amazon or reviews from other YouTubers. As I said early on, I have the product link in the description below, and I'll also have any discount codes in the description if I get one. Thanks for watching the video and enjoy your day. Here's the extra footage I mentioned. The videos shown are taken in 30-degree weather with overcast skies. If you got to the end of this video, you're awesome and you must really enjoy the reviews. So I strongly suggest you check out other reviews on the channel or reviews from other YouTubers on the F7.